Hi everyone, welcome back to TechCravers. Today I'm finally ready to share my thoughts on something truly special, the AYN Thor. It's the latest dual-screen handheld from AYN, and honestly it might be one of the most exciting handhelds we've seen in years. When I first heard about it I thought, really? A modern dual-screen device in 2025? We've seen countless Android handhelds so far, but nothing that truly recreates the magic of the Nintendo DS, 3DS or even the Wii U experience. Until now. The AYN Thor takes that nostalgic idea and completely modernizes it. You got two beautiful OLED screens, the main one up top with a crisp 120Hz refresh rate and a smaller 60Hz screen down below, all packed in a surprisingly sleek clamshell design that feels like a futuristic DS built for today. But of course what really matters is how it plays, because while you could use it for Android games or retro console, that's not what this thing was made for. The Thor's true purpose and where it absolutely shines is delivering that authentic dual-screen gaming experience that so many of us grow up with. Titles that were never meant to be played on a single display finally feels right again. And throughout this review I'll show you how it handles DS and 3DS emulation beautifully and how well it copes with the Wii U titles. And I will of course test its limits with heavier systems as well, like the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Switch. We'll talk about performance, design controls and what it's actually like to use this device day to day. So grab your stylus or, well, your thumbs, because we're about to see if the AYN Thor is the ultimate way to relive the dual screen era. Now, let's jump into it. Before we dig deeper into how this thing actually feels to use, how it handles gameplay, dual screen emulation and so on, let's take a quick look under the hood at what you're getting. The AYN Thor comes in several versions, but at its core you're looking at two main processor options, either a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 for the Lite model or the more powerful Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for the base, Pro and Max versions. Memory and storage vary depending on which version you buy. Configurations include up to 16GB of RAM and 1TB in storage in the top-end model. One of the Thor's major highlights is its dual-screen setup. The top display is a 6-inch OLED panel at full HD resolution, 1920 by 1080 with a 120Hz refresh rate. The bottom display is a 3.92-inch OLED touchscreen running at 60Hz. The battery capacity comes in at 6000 mAh, which by modern handheld standards is modest, but given the clamshell dual-screen form factor, it's a practical compromise. As for build and other extras, the Thor measures roughly 150 by 94 by 25.6mm, weighs about 380 grams and includes active cooling and supports things like micro SD card slots and USB-C connectivity. So in short, you've got a flagship model hardware, at least in the high tier, dual amazing screens and a compact fold-up design built around the dual screen gaming ideal. Alright, now that we covered what's under the hood, let's talk about which model you should buy and how much it'll cost you. The AYN Thor comes in four main configurations. The Lite version is a Snapdragon 865, 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, starting at $249 early bird or about $259 retail. The base model, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 8GB again of RAM and 128GB of storage, starting at $299 for early bird or about $309 retail. The Pro version is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Early bird price is $349 and $359 for retail. And then lastly we have the Max version that has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 16GB of RAM and 1TB of storage. It costs $429 for early bird and $459 for the retail price. And now here's my take. If you're really serious about dual-screen handheld gaming, like emulating DS, 3DS, Wii U and pushing into PS2 and Switch territory, you'll want a configuration that gives you headroom. That means the base or preferably the Pro version. I got the black Pro version as my review unit for this video, and yes, I bought the Pro version myself, but in the rainbow configuration. And it delivers the performance you'll need. On the flip side, that Lite model is tempting at $249, but it uses the older Snapdragon 865 and you'll see more limitations when you start pushing heavier systems. So in my opinion, it's not the best value for our use case. So if you want a balanced pick, go with Pro. If budget is tight and you'll mainly stick to DS and 3DS titles, maybe base could suffice. But don't gamble on the light if you plan to explore the full power of this system. Let's take a moment to talk about the hardware itself, because after spending quite a bit of time with the Thor, there are a few design details worth pointing out. This is the grey or rainbow version, and it really does look great in person. That matte finish feels solid and hides fingerprints very well, and overall it gives off a clean modern vibe. Closed it's compact, slightly chunky, but in a good way. It feels like a serious piece of kit. The first thing you'll notice when handling it are of course the shoulder buttons, and the R1 and L1 buttons are super clicky. Crisp, satisfying and very responsive. Then you got the analog triggers, L2 and R2, and they got a nice progressive pull to them, not too soft and not too stiff. And in my opinion they feel surprisingly high-end for a handheld in its price range. It's the kind of detail you start to appreciate the longer you play. Now let's talk about the hinge. You can open it one-handed if it's resting on a table, but it's not a free moving hinge like on a laptop. It actually has 3 fixed positions that it's locked into, kind of like the tents. That means you can't pick an exact angle anywhere you want, and I'll be honest, I do wish you could. Still, the hinge feels sturdy and it holds its position really well once you're in one of those set angles. When closing it, you'll notice there's a small lip that has 2 little rubber pads. These prevent the screen from touching the main body directly, which is a smart touch. But even with that, there's still a noticeable gap between the lid and the base when it's closed. It's not a flaw, but it does make the Thor look a bit less seamless than it could have been. Finally, let's talk about the optional grip accessory, which goes for around $15. It slides on smoothly and instantly improves the feel. It fills out the back of the device and gives you a more natural hand position. It also helps visually, reducing that lid gap slightly when it's closed. On the back or the underside you'll find a circular intake vent for the active cooling system, and 3 exhaust openings where the warm air is pushed out. It's a clever layout that keeps the device surprisingly cool during longer sessions. You can definitely feel that the thermal design here isn't just for show. And once you open up the Thor, the first thing that hits you is how modern and premium it feels. We got that gorgeous 6-inch main display on top, sharp, vibrant and bright, and just below it the secondary touchscreen, which is impressively responsive and feels perfectly integrated into the design. The 4 face buttons use rubber membrane mechanism, so they are very quiet when you press them. Soft, smooth and actually a bit nostalgic in a good way. At each corner of the lower screen we also have buttons for start, select, home and back. The analog sticks sit slightly recessed into the lower half of the body so that you can fully close the screen without them getting in the way. It's a clever design choice, and even though they're maybe not the best option for a fast-paced shooter, they are absolutely fine, or more than fine, for the DS and 3DS titles I mainly play on this device. Then again, let's be honest, it doesn't take much to outperform the circle pad on a 3DS. Below the bottom screen there's also a new button from AYN, a dedicated AYN button. Pressing it at any time brings up the brand new Quick Settings menu. From here you can control a bunch of useful things like adjusting brightness and audio for each screen individually, switching between different performance modes, or changing the RGB lighting on the analog sticks. You can also leave it at the status mode, which gives you a live readout of key system metrics like temperature, fan speeds and real-time power consumption. It's a surprisingly in-depth tool that makes the Thor feels more like a premium gaming laptop than a handheld. But now it's definitely gaming time, starting with DS titles. From the moment I launched one of my favorite DS games, I got the same comfortable feeling I had back in the day, only now with sharper screens, better controls and a modern handheld form factor. The dual screen layout of the Thor recreates that DS experience in a way I haven't seen since the original. The 6-inch top display is vivid, crisp and makes everything sprite, text box and animation pop. Meanwhile, the lower touchscreen is smooth, responsive and intuitive for its stylus use. I picked up a cheap $6 stylus for this and honestly it feels really good. The stylus glides naturally across the lower screen and the touch response has been strong. I did notice a very slight delay between when I tap with the stylus and how the game reacts, especially in something like Phantom Hourglass where precision is important. But here's the key, the delay is so minimal that, in my opinion, it doesn't impact playability one bit. It still feels entirely usable for serious DS gaming. And if you're unfamiliar with setting up dual screen emulators correctly, I've got a full tutorial on my channel covering how to configure everything for DS, 3DS and Wii U games, so check that out if you hit any snags. In short, playing DS on the Thor feels like nostalgia hit upgraded. The feel, look and controls are all the same, just amped up with modern hardware. The stylus works, the screens deliver, and the layout feels natural. If DS titles are your thing, this is a device you'll really enjoy. Moving on to 3DS games, and this is where the Thor really starts to flex what it can do. Thanks to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 inside, you're not just running these games smoothly, you can actually crank the internal resolution up 2 or even 3 times higher than the original hardware. And the result is stunning. Games that once looked jagged or soft on the 3DS tiny 400 by 240 screen suddenly look sharp, colorful and alive. The OLED displays take that upgrade even further. The colors are rich, the contrast is incredible, and the blacks are truly black. Something the original 3DS screens could never dream of. It almost feels like you're seeing these games the way they were meant to look, if the hardware back then had been powerful enough. And just like with the DS titles, I've got a full tutorial on my channel showing exactly how to set up your 3DS emulators and get dual screen mode working perfectly. So if you got questions about setup or configuration, make sure to check it out. As for the experience itself, it's excellent. The main display gives you all the space you could ever want for the top screen, while the bottom touchscreen remains perfectly functional for menus and touch inputs. The added resolution and clarity make text easier to read, models look crisp, and even older textures come through nicely. Honestly, playing 3DS games on the Thor makes it hard to go back to the original system. It keeps all the charm and personality of the 3DS experience, just sharper, smoother, and more comfortable to play. Now let's dive into some Wii U games on the Thor. The performance is very good, at least on par with the original hardware, and in some cases even better thanks to the modern screens. The 6-inch OLED up tops gives you richer colors, deeper contrast, and far more clarity than the Wii U's own display ever delivered. However, there's a caveat. The lower screen doesn't always play perfectly with the widescreen format of the Wii U games when using Cemu on a dual screen handheld. Because many Wii U titles are designed for a wide aspect ratio, like 16:9 or wider, that layout can look a bit odd on the bottom display, which is more squarish or differently proportioned. Meanwhile, the top display handles those widescreen visuals nearly flawlessly. So you'll get that premium screen wow moment up top, but the bottom screen might occasionally feel a little out of sync visually. From what I've used, those quirks don't ruin the experience though. Many games run amazingly well already, and the hardware inside the Thor gives you the headroom to handle the emulation comfortably. But if you're coming in expecting everything to look exactly like the original layout plus ratio, the bottom screen might remind you that we're still in emulated handheld territory. All in all though, if you're a Wii U fan, this is a very compelling way to play. Just know about the aspect ratio oddness on the bottom screen so you can set your expectations accordingly. Also remember that we're still early in the life of Cemu on Android, it's a young emulator and there are some development quirks. A handful of games either don't run properly yet or don't start at all. But that's expected right now, and it's clear that things are improving fast. With every update, compatibility and performance get better, so the future of Wii U emulation on Android looks really promising. Lastly, let's talk some about PS2 and Switch performance, because this is where the Thor really shows what a modern Android handhelds are capable of. Starting with PlayStation 2, the results are incredible. Games like God of War 2 and Burnout 3 Takedown run absolutely flawlessly on this CPU. Frame rates are pretty much locked, visuals are crisp, and with the extra power from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, you can even bump up the internal resolution for a sharper, cleaner image than the PS2 could ever produce. These classics have quite literally never looked better, and the combination of OLED color depth and smooth 120Hz motion makes them feel brand new again. Moving over to Nintendo Switch emulation, things are honestly just as exciting. The Eden emulator keeps improving with every update, and the Thor's hardware handles a surprising number of games extremely well. In this video I'm playing Hades 2 and Hollow Knight Silksong, and both run beautifully, stable frame rates, no noticeable stutter, and visuals that really benefit from those bright OLED screens. Of course this isn't perfect scenario yet, some big first-party AAA titles still push the limit of what's currently possible on Android, but even their performance is steadily improving. With every emulator update and firmware tweak, more titles become playable, and it's clear that the Thor has the power to keep up as the software side catches up. So while PS2 emulation already feels like native perfection, Switch support is getting stronger every week. And honestly, the fact that you can sit here playing games like Hades 2 or Silksong on a dual screen handheld is of course kind of insane. It's a glimpse of just how far this scene has come. So after spending quite a bit of time with the AYN Thor, I can honestly say that this thing has completely won me over. It's not just another Android handheld, it's a thoughtful, modern take on what made dual screen gaming so special back in the day, and it delivers on that promise better than I ever expected. The build quality is solid, the screens are stunning, and the performance, especially on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 model, is seriously impressive. Whether you're reliving DS and 3DS classics, diving into Wii U titles, or pushing the limits with PS2 and Switch games, the Thor handles it all with confidence. Sure, there are still quirks, the Hinge could have been a little more flexible, the Wii U aspect ratio isn't always perfect, and Cemu and Eden still have room to grow, but that's kind of the beauty of it. This is a device that's going to get better over time, and right now, even as it stands, it's already an amazing piece of tech for anyone who loves handheld gaming. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope this review helped you get a clear picture of what the AYN Thor is all about. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and maybe check out my other videos as well, including my full emulator dual screen setup tutorial if you plan to pick one of these up. That's it for now, I'll see you in the next one, take care and happy gaming.